So here's our introduction to Gatsby. Some of this was kind of already covered in the video that you watched as well, but here is an artistic representation of what Gatsby's home would have looked like. There are a ton of really cool images out there if you kind of just Google what that would have been. But we're going to have a quick introduction to some of the characters here. Gatsby, he's our self-made man. He lives next door to Nick Carraway, who you're going to meet in chapter 1, and we find out that he is in love with Daisy Buchanan. And then we have Nick Carraway, who is our narrator. He is Gatsby's narrator and kind of finds himself in the middle of this situation. He's Daisy's cousin. He has come to New York and finds himself being sort of a fish out of water. Daisy Buchanan is married to Tom Buchanan, Daisy's ex-girlfriend, also Nick's cousin, and we get to know her, and a lot of people have different opinions on Daisy and just what she's all about. She's a pretty complex character, and hopefully you can kind of establish what you feel about her as the story continues. We have Tom Buchanan, and he is married to Daisy, and we find out from the very beginning, is having an affair with Myrtle Wilson, who is married to George Wilson, and that relationship also becomes very complex. And hopefully you see some parallels there between F. Scott Fitzgerald and his story. So we have Jordan Baker as well, who is a professional golfer. Her and Nick kind of have a summer romance, but she's also a good friend of Daisy Buchanan. So those are really the main characters that we're going to touch on. The setting is in 1922, New York City, and we have this really interesting concept of West Egg versus East Egg. So it's a combination of working class people and also the wealthy communities. And you can see this is the actual shape of that location, and it's referenced quite a bit throughout the story. And you have the West Egg, which is considered new money, which we find Gatsby in. And then you have East Egg, which is our old money. And that's a really big theme throughout the novel that we'll dive into a little bit more. But this is the Jazz Age. Prohibition was in effect. Really fun dancing, fun outfits, a lot of really unique slang happening during this time, really amazing economy bouncing back from World War I, really rejecting kind of the social norms of the early 1900s, and lived this really carefree lifestyle post-war. So these are just some themes in regards to Gatsby, the American dream, some examples of people who kind of ended up with some success in achieving what seemed at the time unachievable just because of their history and background story. So a really cool theme that we'll touch on more. So just so we get the concept between East Egg and West Egg, remember East Egg is old money that came from family wealth. Usually these people don't work. They actually don't have anything that they do all day. They're very reserved, refined. They have a certain status about them that's very obvious. Now, new money, they worked hard for it, and they like to show that money off, and they're not quite as respected at the West Egg as they are in the East Egg. So the comparison to think of is Lindsay Lohan versus Paris Hilton. Both have drug problems, both were arrested, both had scandals, both made bad movies, failed singing careers. However, one still gets endorsement deals, which would be Paris Hilton, and while the other one is not accepted in these social elite classes anymore because of just where she comes from, old money, still even wins today. So it's a really interesting concept to think about. So that is our story of Gatsby, just kind of an introduction, and we're going to get ready to dive into the book here in a few short days.